It's on, I suppose. All right, we're here meeting with naval architect Iver Frantzen. He's been consulting with me on my attempt at designing a sailboat, and it's been very useful, very helpful. And so I just want to ask him a few questions. How you doing, Iver?
I'm doing just fine.
Say a little bit about yourself.
I didn't know I was going to be on TV.
Well, you're not going to be on TV. Iver, your history in terms of design, you've worked with the...
Well, I worked with Thomas Gilmer for many years. He was chair of the Naval Department, Naval Architecture Department at the Naval Academy for many years. And worked on Pride of Baltimore II and Calmer Nickel and a bunch of other sailing ships with him. And I've had my own design practice now since '92. And my motto is, if the check clears, I'll design it.
Have you seen lately, the last 10 or 20 years, working class people getting out of sailing because it's just become too expensive?
The short answer is yes, especially since, what, 08? Certainly, I think there's been a downsizing of boats for many people. Some have gotten out. But then the higher end market has done quite well.
Right.
So
right.
It just depends on which demographic, I guess, you're talking about.
Right. And so have you found a lot of people wanting to do their own, maybe not as aggressive as I've attempted to do, but their own attempt at building a boat?
I wouldn't say a lot of people. It's still a fairly small segment of the boating crowd. Having custom designs done is actually quite common and makes a lot of sense, especially for more experienced sailors, because they in the years that they've accumulated that experience, they have learned what they like and what they don't like, what they want, what they don't want. So yeah, a lot of custom designs, and most of those go to professional builders, right. And then it's a sort of a three-way relationship with the client, the builder, and the designer, all working together to pull it together. Home builders is a much smaller segment, but certainly some very good boats have come out of that.
So from my reading, there was, like, back in the 70s, a lot of people used to try and build catamarans and all that kind of stuff. That was a little bit too aggressive back in the day, or, I mean, I was around in the 70s, but, from what I've read, that's when people were really into home building boats. Or was it earlier, even before then? Like when the price of oil went up.
Well, yeah, I guess it probably also had to do with the fact that there were more materials available that allowed more home building. Certainly, of course, wood's always been around, and there have always been local builders, mostly in the form of small commercial guys, would often build their own boats. A lot of the boats on the Chesapeake, the watermen's boats, a lot of those guys actually built their own boats just because they're easy to build, they could, and it was cheap.
Right.
And none of those guys ever made a lot of money. For the recreational builder, to do a good wood boat actually requires a fair bit of finesse and the ability, workmanship, and other materials like ferrule cement and glass, fiberglass to a certain extent, in some ways could be considered a little more forgiving. That's not to say that mistakes weren't made, but that might have helped folks do a little more of their own building. A number of companies also did kit boats, where you could buy the hull and the deck and the engine, and then you finish the rest of it yourself.
I heard, like, West Sail used to do that or something.
West Sail did that, Corbin did that, a number of companies
Okay. Well, Iver's been a great help to me in trying to get my boat designed. I'm a little bit of a large human being, so
well, that's another good reason for custom design. There's nothing wrong with that. That's great.
yeah, I at 6'7", 350 pounds, I just found production boats, or even boats that were cheap. Just
well, you're not the first client with whom I have, you're not my first very large client.
So this is through necessity. I've given myself 5 years, and I don't know. Hopefully, I'll come out a little bit ahead financially, but maybe not. Any closing words on what your impression of our second meeting here with the?
No, I think
noting that I've done what you said. I've reduced the the mast. I've reduced the keel.
Well, we do need to look at the hull shape some more, and we need to get a firmer grip on. I'm not sure. I believe the weights. I'm not saying you didn't do a good weight study, but I'd like to see that.
Right.
And see how it came together. Because I hate doing them, so I wouldn't expect you would enjoy doing it either.
Yeah, find each piece of wood and how much it weighs.
And it's very easy to leave things out. And the rule of thumb is you do a weight study and then add 10%.
Okay.
That's just standard procedure because there's always unseen things. You're forgetting to include all the weight of all the wiring adds up in a hurry and things like that.
That's true. That's true.
So.
Fasteners.
We need to look at fasteners that add up in a real hurry.
Right.
Lots of things add up that you just don't think is going to happen, and all of a sudden you've gained 30%.
Right.
So we need to take a closer look at that and look at that in terms of the hull shape. And then we might find that with a shorter rig, well, okay, maybe we want to think about let's take another look at the rig. If it's not quite enough to move the boat along as nicely as you'd like, maybe we need to think about figuring out a way to add a little more sail area. Otherwise, it might be fine just the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
Or if it comes in a little heavier, heavier enough, we might decide that, well, maybe 75 horse engine is not quite enough.
Right. I have really long oars. What are those boats the Greeks used to have that they usst to row?
Triremes.
Yeah, we'll get a. I'll
that's right. You said you had a big family.
I'll indenture my children. All right. Well,
that's really what the porthole.
Yeah, that's really what they're for. All right. So I just want to thank you for helping me with that, and thank you very much.